Sina, just for the layman, just to because I'm our techno layman peasant here on this program. On this would be almost like combing through a whole bunch of studies to try to find what are the common nuggets. What's the common nugget in this research? All of them have obviously, a different approach, maybe different goals, different objectives. But what's a common thread? Because if you can get a common thread among 110 studies, you can be fairly sure that that's something you can go to the bank with.
That's exactly right. And so this is how science is. You can pretty much take any topic, any argument, and you can find a study to support either side of that argument, right? That's how varied the scientific literature is. So it's not that helpful. You could defend anything with one article. So what you want to do is you want to go to the what's called like a meta-analysis or a review. And that one takes, like I said, it could be 110 different articles, and they're analyzing them using certain parameters that they think are important. And they're trying to see, is there an effect? So you might take, for instance, a Mediterranean diet and depression. Well, you can have one study say it helps and another study say it doesn't help. So if you have a meta-analysis where you're collecting 100 studies and you're saying over these 100 studies, did it help? And if it did help, then that's good evidence that there's some merit to that conclusion that a Mediterranean diet can help with depression. All right. So it's increasing the value of, or the likelihood that that conclusion is accurate when you take the studies together. So that's what this 2020 review did. And when they looked at all these studies, they actually concluded that a poor diet is a, quote, risk factor for both anxiety and depression. And a poor diet is a risk factor for people's inability to cope with stress. They concluded, quote, current evidence suggests that healthy eating patterns may assist in the prevention and treatment of depression and anxiety, and that suboptimal nutrition has been implicated in the underlying pathology of behavioral health disorders. So what does that mean? That means poor diet is a cause of mental health disease or mental health disorders. So that's what they're concluding from looking at a whole plethora of studies. In fact, the International Society for Nutritional Psychiatry, they actually are now recommending that nutrition be considered in mainstream psychiatric practices because it's so profoundly impacting mental imbalances. Okay.
Wow. So that means if you've got a depressed teenager, hide the tortilla chips.
Yes. I mean,
I mean,
it's true.
Let's get real here.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
That's what it means. It means, and I'll walk you through this, but the conclusion is, like what we've talked about, go back to ancestral diet. Like a lot of this research I'm going to show today, that is the bottom line, is we need to go back to the ancestral diet. We need to get all the artificials out of the diet. Okay, but so let's walk through some of that so you can see it for yourself. You're not just trusting me, So I thought this was interesting. Just this year in March, out of Stanford Medicine, there was a groundbreaking research clinical trial. And what they found was that a ketogenic diet, so a ketogenic diet is one that's very high in fat and it's very low in carbohydrate. So they found that it actually has great benefits for schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Okay, schizophrenia is one of the hardest conditions to treat. And we're showing that this ketogenic diet can help. So this study had 21 adults. So this was a human study. 21 adults. They had schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and they were taking antipsychotic medications. And they had metabolic abnormalities. And this is common. When someone is following a standard treatment with antipsychotic medication, according to the lead researchers here at Stanford Medicine, it often does cause metabolic side effects like insulin resistance and obesity or hypertriglyceride. So high triglycerides, impaired glucose tolerance, things like that. So the drug itself is causing that problem. Okay. So what happened was they took these 21 adults, they put them on a ketogenic diet for just 4 months. And you'll love this, Joel. They told them, do not count calories, right? Calories are worthless. Do not count the calories. Instead, the lead author said that she had them focus on eating whole foods that were not processed and not restricting any kind of fat whatsoever. And they ate non-starchy vegetables. So they weren't eating like potatoes, for instance. Okay. So the results were stunning. 75% of these adult participants saw, quote, significant improvements in their psychiatric symptoms. They improved on average 31% on a psychiatrist's rating of mental illness. It's the rating that they use is known as the Clinical Global Impression Scale. But after only 4 months on this diet, their condition, their psychological condition improved by 31%. They also reported better sleep, greater satisfaction of life, a better mood, more energy, and they felt more hopeful. And this right here is one of the biggest takeaways for me. After only 4 months on this diet, remember, every participant had some kind of metabolic syndrome. Okay. Probably from the medication. Now they're still on the medication when they're on this diet. Okay. The medication wasn't helping. They went on this diet for 4 months. They saw improvements in the psychiatric disorders, but by the end of the 4 months, none of the participants had metabolic syndrome anymore. None of them. So that tells you the power of diet. So they lost on average 10% of their body weight. They reduced waist circumference by 11%. They lowered blood pressure. They lowered their triglycerides. They lowered their blood sugar levels, and their insulin resistance improved. And this is a big deal. We kind of skim over it and we're like, yeah, insulin resistance, whatever. You know, the insulin resistant component is a big deal for mental health. So most of us are familiar with insulin resistance in terms of diabetes, right? Like type 2 diabetes, consequence of insulin resistance. But insulin resistance can also increase with anxiety, with depression, Alzheimer's disease. In fact, some researchers call Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes because of the role of insulin resistance in the brain. So even if you're just looking at this one marker alone, this insulin resistance marker, this marker is telling us that physical and mental illnesses are related and inseparable from each other. And the problem is, if someone has this insulin resistance over time, it can lead to things like anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and it can also increase your risk of other chronic illnesses like cancer. And here we have this groundbreaking study out of Stanford Medicine showing that after 4 months on a ketogenic diet, that you can improve this insulin resistant score. And you'll see in some of these studies I'm going to point out later, you can actually reverse it completely in some instances on a ketogenic diet. Okay. So this is just one study that I've shown, and that's how much information we've already gleaned from that one study.
Friends, want to dive deeper into our thought-provoking conversations? Become part of the Beyond Labels family today by joining below. For any gift amount, you'll get access to the full uncut episodes.
Every contribution, whether big or small, keeps this podcast going.
So join us and expand your Beyond Labels experience. Thank you.